All right, so today we're going to talk about mutations. I have this sort of laid out for you, so it takes less time to go over it. Before we talk about mutations, though, you need to know how we make proteins and stuff from DNA. So that's why we do protein synthesis before we do mutations. So as a reminder, DNA uses T. So DNA uses T, and then RNA uses U. Okay, so that's really important that you know that. Also, transcription comes before translation because it's alphabetical. And transcription, we go from DNA, we make mRNA by base pairing. Remember, the A goes to U because it's RNA, it has to use U, right? But then T would still go to A, C still pair with G, and G still pair with C. Okay, so that has to happen in the nucleus because that's where DNA is. So. And then in translation, you use that mRNA. The ribosome reads it and make amino acids or proteins. Remember, amino acids make up proteins. It happens at the ribosome because ribosomes make protein, which is what we're doing there. And then when we read that mRNA, we read it in codons, which is sets of 3 bases of the mRNA. Okay, so make sure when we're reading those, we're reading the mRNA. And so one codon gives you 1 amino acid, which means that 3 bases give 1 amino acid. So for the record, AA is amino acid. All right, so there are 3 general types of mutations. There's insertions, deletions, and substitutions. So insertion is exactly what it sounds like, you're adding a base. Deletion is exactly what it sounds like, you're removing a base. But both of these cause frame shift mutations. And what that means is the reading frame shifts. So let's use this sentence as an example. The cat ate the rat. All those words are 3, so it's kind of like the same thing as what we do whenever we're reading the DNA and the RNA. So let's say we have to read it in sets of 3. So I've got these little brackets here that are showing you the sets of 3 that you're reading it in. But then something happens and we delete that E. So now everything shifts over 1. So that C moves over here, that T moves over, or the A moves over there. The T moves there, and the R moves there. So now you're reading which doesn't really make any sense because that was probably really terrible, but that's what it would be like. So then you have the substitution, which is just swapping out a base. So obviously this is worse than just swapping out a base because if we just swapped out one letter, so instead of deleting the E, let's say we just swapped it out for an A, then it would say the cat ate the rat. It's obviously not quite as severe as the so frame shift is pretty bad. I do want to make a point though that if you just delete one set of 3, then it's not nearly as bad. So let's say we just deleted it would still say the cat ate rat. So deleting 1 or adding 1 is pretty bad, but sets of 3 are not quite as severe. And then substitutions, we're swapping them out. So like, for example, TAC would become TAG. So you swapped out the C for a G. And there are 3 different categories of that. Oh yeah, that looks better. Okay, so there are 3 different categories of that. We have one that called a missense, like a mistake. Okay, mistake. A nonsense, and then a silent. So the missense changes 1 amino acid. So you are swapping a base out. It changes the codon. So here we changed out the original I have down here for reference. So let's say the original DNA was TAC, AGT, TTG, ATC. So if you look here, the only thing that's different between those 2 is that C. Okay, so we changed that codon, and when you're making the mRNA, we base pair it just like we normally would. So UAG. And so notice here, the only thing that's different is this codon right here. So when we are making the amino acids, this one changes, but the rest of them stay the same. The rest of these are good. but that one changed. So the missense changes one amino acid. The nonsense, instead of changing the amino acid, it changes it to a stop. So here, the C is what's different. So it goes from AGT to ACT. And so what that does is whenever you transcribe it to the mRNA, remember we use U's for that. So that changes that to a UGA. So that's different. So then whenever we do the translation, that actually gives us a stop, which means we don't even have to do the rest of it because it's stopped, it's done, which is bad because you don't want a short protein. Proteins, when they're short, don't do what they're supposed to do. And then the silent is where you're changing the codon, but it doesn't actually change the amino acid. This is good. We like this kind. This kind is good. Okay. Because let's say we change that AGT to AGG. So our codon is still different. So UCC is still different than UCA. But whenever you translate it, then we get the same amino acid out of it. So this is still the same amino acid. Okay, whereas this one was different. So these are based on what the result of that substitution is. So it's kind of three categories, which are the results. All right. Now I do want to make a note here that mutations are random. Okay, they're random. Let's say that we want to mutate, that a mutation is going to happen. We can't just choose for mutation to be silent. Okay, it could be any of those. It's just depending on where it falls, where it happens, whatever. That's just luck right there, okay? Because when you look at your codon chart, notice that some of these, it doesn't matter what the third base is. Anything in that box, like here, here, for example, the arginine. So regardless of whether or not the last base is U, C, A, or G, it's still going to be arginine. So those are good. We like those, but it's luck whether or not that's what happened. So they are random. They don't happen because we want them to. If you want to be able to fly, and there's some kind of mutation that you know you can get so that you can fly, you can't just close your eyes and squeeze them real tight and wish and hope, and then all of a sudden your DNA changes so that you can fly. That's not how it works. So they happen randomly, and then they could be good. So actually, not all are bad, but a lot of them are bad, like cancer and genetic diseases and stuff are the result of these. So then insertions and deletions, I'll show you what this looks like too with the same set of DNA and stuff, the same originals. So let's say that, we read them in sets of 3, and I've shown you here what the original sets of 3 were. But what happened was we added that C in. So now we're reading these new, whereas the original was placed off. So because you added that one in, it shifted everything this direction. Shifted everything over there to the right. So now the mRNA is going to be AUG, AC, whoops, not A, U, UCA, GAA, CUA, and then a G that's kind of left by itself there, which would make it MET. Let me see, UCA is serine. That one actually didn't change. Oh, wait, no, just kidding. That's not where the mutation happened. Mutation happened right there. Okay. So that means these are different. So then GAA is glutamate. CUA is leucine. And then we're kind of left here hanging at the end. So everything after here changed. Okay, so it's bad. It changed everything after it, so it messed up reading the whole rest of the strand. Whereas deletion, so here we didn't mess up the first part. The first part's good, but here's where the mutation happened. So we deleted the A. So it shows you here how it was originally read. but the A is obviously missing from the AGT, right? But now you're reading it like this. So now GTT would give you CAA, TGA would be ACU, and then we got an A and a G kind of hanging out here. So the amino acids for that, MET would still be the same, but because the mutation happened there, CAA gives you glutamine. So that's, yes, that's GLN. ACU gives you threonine, and then AG is kind of whatever. So everything after here changes. So everything after where the mutation happened would get changed because it shifts everything over. Now the causes of these, we say that they are random, but they are random, but there are certain things that can stimulate them to happen. That doesn't mean it stimulates certain kinds of mutations. It just stimulates mutations to happen. So radiation, that's like X-rays, UV rays, gamma rays, things like that. So that you try to protect yourself from these UV rays or the sun. X-rays, you wear the big lead vest at the dentist or whatever. And then so these things cause mutations to happen, not necessarily certain mutations, but they can cause random mutations to happen. And you don't know what kind of mutation is going to come from that. It could be any of these. And then certain chemicals like nicotine, for example, in cigarettes, can cause certain kinds of mutations. And the reason it happens mostly in the lungs is because that's where the nicotine is exposed to. So like that's why it's not causing specifically lung cancer, because that's the mutation that happens. It's just where that chemical is. And then sometimes it just happens. So during DNA replication or transcription translation, something just happens and it just does something wrong. And it just happens. Okay, so an overview real quick here, mutations. These are changes in DNA. That's what they are. Didn't write that up there earlier. Oops. So changes in DNA. The three kinds, you can add bases, you can delete them, or you can swap them out. If you add or delete them, you get a frame shift, which means that you're changing how you read it, which causes big problems for everything after where you mess it up. So like the cat ate the rat becomes a tit. And then down here, it changed all the amino acids after that point where the mutation occurred. And then you have the point mutations where it could just change the codon to where it changes the amino acid once. It could change the codon to an early stop, which screws up the rest of it because you just don't even make it. And then it could also just be nothing because oops, I circled the wrong one, didn't I? It's here. Because that one did not end up having an issue because it was exactly the same amino acid. And they are totally random. They don't happen because you want them. They don't happen because you need them. They happen just because they happened, and then they could sometimes be good. But they also cause, the bad ones lead to like cancer and diseases and stuff. Okay, so some are good, some are bad. And then insertion deletions, there's the example again there, and then they're caused by these kinds of things. Those things don't cause certain mutations. They just cause random ones to happen, which can sometimes cause an issue.